So anyway, before we get started, everybody, this is going to be episode number, see, that's a good one. Episode number 50. And for 49 episodes at the end of our podcast, Jim has constantly asked all of our fans that watch to get in contact with us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see happen, change. We finally had somebody that listened. Somebody watched our part 2 of the one with Herb and found us on Instagram. And his name is Asham. Let us know how much he enjoyed it and liked what we were doing. We replied with, let us know exactly what you liked and what you would like us to see changed, because our podcast is available in Arabic and English.
What's cool is Nathan is the one that actually does the Arabic.
With all the voiceovers?
Yeah. Hey, while we're waiting for Danny to come on, I got, you know what? Give me 1 second here.
So everybody, like, subscribe. I mean, with the algorithm, you guys have to like, subscribe so we can push it up. Also, we do have a Patreon. It's over at Patreon, the Squared Ring podcast.com. Will be published again because we got tagged for 18 because one of our wrestlers, a male, had his shirt off. And they said we were promoting 18 plus content. So we had to go back and let them know we're a sports entertainment company. And we, that was a male wrestler. So they took off the 18 and only tag off of it. And I just haven't re-uploaded everything because it takes time. And we hadn't had anybody get on there yet anyway because we didn't make it public. But it's going to be republished by tomorrow morning. So if you want content you're not going to find anywhere else, especially from FanFest 1, where we walk around with Victoria and do interviews with all your favorite wrestlers, those are only available on Patreon. So go on over there, check it out. $10 a month. And there are things that are going to increase. Now, what we're going to do with that money is we're going to use that to bring on a greater and greater wrestler base for you guys. And, of course, to upgrade equipment and a Gentleman Jack White Russian fund.
I kind of like the sound of that.
Yeah, that's what we need.
So it's definitely been a little bit since, like, I showed anything that I picked up in the wild or someone's gave me. So I want to say I found a couple items on eBay.
Macho Man
and Miss Elizabeth. Now, growing up, I had almost all these except for I never had her. So it was kind of cool that I was able to pick her up from the eBay.
She's so generic looking and not, though. It could have been Wendy. It could have been any prior wrestler, female wrestler.
Right. Yeah, but for the LJN line, they only had one female wrestler. Well, not that she was even a wrestler, but it was only Miss Elizabeth. A couple things I picked up.
Danny Boy!
Oh, look at that.
Hey. Sorry, I had to have my daughter show me how to do this stuff.
No worries, Bobby keeps popping in and out because he's having complications.
Bobby normally does it on his phone, but this time he wanted to switch up to his computer.
Oh,
so now he's going through a whole little spoof of stuff.
I got you. Okay.
So technically,
I have it lucky. I get on an hour early and get out all the kinks from my end, so it still doesn't help.
There he is.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. Like I lost all network on my computer, so I just switched it to my phone.
I don't know. I wish I could have screenshot it. It was the perfect thing, though. You drinking a beer, frozen, with FanFest 2 poster behind you. I don't know if Herb would have liked it, but, it was a good picture. for the podcast. All right, if we're all ready, when you're ready, Bobby, I'll bring us in and we can get started.
Ready now.
There we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Spread Root Podcast, everybody. A milestone podcast for us, episode 50. And today we have a very special guest, Danny Boy Hawkins,
Hey guys,
and a
how are ya?
2019 St. Louis Hall of Fame inductee.
Wow, yeah, 2019 inductee. Hard to believe. Hard to believe.
How's it going,
Does it
sir?
make you feel old?
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. It's crazy. It's one of those things where I was just talking to my wife about it today. Because I started back in '89, and to still think 35 years later we'd still be doing this, or coming back and doing this. It's awesome. I mean, I'm having the time of my life. So.
That's great. Now, prior to having you on here, we've actually talked about you before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
All good stuff.
Yeah, all good stuff.
I see the wink there, buddy.
Well, so I talked about my training back in the day, and then we talked about how I train the new guys for the Ace Academy, and how our training is different. Mainly, and we can go into it. I mean, we talked about how you came in for one of the training sessions that really shook my world and knocked me to the ground.
Which was an accident, but
no. But so I was talking about how the training that I originally did, and then Bobby came in for the second time when I came back. It was more like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's more gritty, dirty, more authentic.
Old school.
Yeah, it was more old school. We had a run down building. The building could have fell down at any given time. And
Now-
It's since been condemned.
now that was at the one at the end of the road there, right?
right,
The building.
right.
So
Yeah.
you weren't actually at the one that was because before they did that, we trained in the back room
Yes.
at Broadway.
Right.
You talk
Now,
about hardcore. Man.
Well,
And it's funny that I mention it because in the back room they had the ring set up, and you couldn't stand. Now you guys know how short I am.
yeah.
I could not stand on the top rope without the ceiling hitting my head. That's how low the ceiling was. And where they had the ring set up, there was actually ductwork. So when a guy would pick you up and go to slam you, you were hoping your feet as you were coming over didn't hit the ductwork.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, but all the times that ring in that building broke down, and we, duct tape and super glued and bubble gummed everything together.
Yeah.
To keep that ring going, just so we can practice.
Yeah.
And and then compared to somewhat how I have to train the new guys, because I find it I have to be a little easier on them.
A little nicer.
Nicer for one, but it's like this whole woke you can't yell at me bullshit. Oh, I get offended and I need a tampon.
Well, if you're going to be in pro wrestling, there's no room for Kleenex or tampons.
Right.
I mean,
and eventually I have to whittle them out, and we got a good core group of students now. I think you've seen some of them over the last couple months.
Yeah.
But I used to be able to, at the end of their first day, be able to tell, well, this one's not going to come back. This one's not going to come. And there was there was one time we had a whole group of like 6 that showed up for the first day, never came back. And, they pay at the very beginning of the month, the very first day. And I'm thinking, man, you guys just blew all that money, 6 of
Yeah.
you, just for one day, and you guys couldn't hack it and come back at least the second day. It's crazy to me.
And
But
I'm
the
sure
all
and I'm sure you weren't as hard on them as they were with us
right.
when we
Uh,
started.
I mean, so my main trainer was Gino Harris, the
Uh huh.
exterminator.
Right.
So
Right.
and you know, I hated him during training, but I love him now. It's kind of one of those weird father-son relationships where, God damn, would you lighten up and then be like, man, I'm so
Right.
glad you didn't lighten up. I love you, man.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Exactly.
You know,
And that's kind of how you, dude. When I first started, I was 17 years old. Like I said, I was 100 and nothing and 5 foot nothing. And the premise I the premise was, and I think this was kind of a pact between my dad and Tony Costa, for both their sakes, because they both probably got tired of me bothering them with
oh.
this, and I think the deal was, and my dad had told me this later on. Uh, he basically wanted Tony and those guys to beat the shit out of me, thinking that I wasn't tough enough, and I'd be like, "Oh man, this isn't for me,"
Uh-huh.
which they did for the for the first God man for the first 3.5 4 months. I got my ass handed to me. I'd go home with a busted lip, a busted nose, bruised, battered, bloody chest from chops. I mean, and then all the bumps that they would make me take and do and all this stuff. And I kept coming back, and I guess it finally got to the point where, like, now this kid's not going away, so we might as well. He's got heart, he's got
Right.
heart, so we might as well show him.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of how I felt too. Because when I went through, I started with like 10 people, maybe 14, dwindled down to where it was just me as the rookie new guy, and still wasn't allowed to have a match, but they invited another group of people, and it was probably 10 in that group, and whittled it all down, and to me again, and it was just me and Jerome Cody. I don't know if you remember Jerome
Yeah, I
Cody.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure
so
do.
it was just me and him, and this was like the first time I ever got cut from Broadway, because me and Bobby have got this special relationship where we got cut from Broadway from a lot of times. But
Hmm.
me and Jerome, we were little Tony comes in and he goes, "Are these the 2 guys?" And Gino's like, "Yes." And he goes, "All right, tell them to have a match. Let me see what they got." And so me and Jerome, still green as shit,
Hmm.
tried to come together with a match. And at the end, Tony looked at Gino and goes, "Cut him." It's like, holy shit,
Really?
man! I've been going for this for like a year, and you're just gonna cut me just like that?
Hmm.
But find other ways back into the fold, and that's what ended up happening. But one of the first times that I ever wrestled Gino, and I think I brought this up too. I didn't know he had false teeth, and he would pick me up, body slam me, got on top of me, and all of a sudden I felt something like rubbing against my forehead. And I'm looking around like, what the fuck's he got in his hand? And then eventually I was able to see he had his teeth in his hand. And he was ripping his teeth across my forehead. I was like, oh my God, this is so gross. What the fuck are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, yep.
But I wouldn't have it any other way. But uh, yeah, but that was the whole conversation that we were having before. It was just the difference in how kids these days are totally different than what we were like when we were going in the business. You
Right.
know, and you have not inflate anyone's head, but Brandon Beretta, Top Guns. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he is the the superstar of the academy right now, because you can tell every week he is just more focused and he's trying to get even better than what he was last week. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it makes me proud to see the students like that. And we just graduated two more, and I think we're going to graduate Andy the ref, you know, because he's already on the cards, you know, reffing and everything. So I would love to see, and I wish I would have done it, kept the ratio of how many students I've had versus how many are still there. You know, because you only
Right.
keep like
Right.
one or two out of you know, a group of 10 that come in on, you know, on a given shot. But
Right.
it's just, you know, like I said, wrestling is not cut out for everyone. Not every fan makes it to becoming a wrestler.
I think the biggest thing, and it was for me, and I'm sure it was for you guys too. Uh, you start out as just a fan, loving the business. I mean, loving what you see on on TV, and it's either something with it or somebody that got you hooked that made you go, oh my God, I want to do this, or
Right.
I got to try this, and then after the fact you learn about stuff, and then you find out that you have what a lot of guys don't have, and that's the passion for this business.
Right.
Because if you don't have that, you might as well call it done.
Right. So I know we kind of jumped in a whole bunch of things, but let's backtrack and focus on you. So you said you were 17 when you got into the business. So
Yeah.
were you I mean, of course, I'm going to say that you were a fan.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what did you
Yep.
follow? Who was your main, you know, guy that
Um,
you leaned towards?
when I was a kid, how I got hooked actually was I was born and raised in a Catholic family, so we would go to church on Sundays, and then after church we would go to my grandma's because my dad worked second shift. We'd go see my grandma and eat, and while they were in the kitchen getting stuff ready, the TV'd be on, and I remember at one point there was wrestling at the Chase on,
Mm-hmm.
and I just was mesmerized. I think I was 6 years old. This is back in the '70s, and I was just mesmerized by these guys. They were like, oh my God, they're like gods. And I remember my mom came in to tell me it was time to eat, and I looked up at her. I was sitting there on the floor, and I looked up at her and I said, "Ma, that's what I want to do." Oh yeah, okay, honey, come on, let's go eat. Not knowing years later that here I was doing it, but it was that, and then it was the combination. I got hooked when I was probably about 13, 14, and the guy that did it was Hogan. And the reason it was Hogan, it wasn't so much for his wrestling ability, which he could, he just didn't have to. But what got me about Hogan was the power that he had. He had 20,000 screaming people in an arena, and it was just him by himself. And to me, that was powerful. I thought, oh my God, how does this guy even do this? And then I started lifting weights and stuff when I was about 14. And then I went from 14 to 17, kept trying to call down at South Broadway. And Tony would always say, well, how much do you weigh? Um, yeah, I'm like 180 pounds, and I was only like 120. So, yeah, finally, like I said, I went down there and they gave me my shot. But it was really Hogan that got me hooked. And then I started watching other guys like Piper. Piper was so good at getting people pissed at him, and that was another powerful thing to me. It was like, God, man, he can just look at somebody and just and create that emotion. And then it was Flair and guys like that too that I was really interested in, but Hogan was the one that really got me hooked.
All right, so Bobby's gonna frown because he already knows the answer. I asked this of all of our guests,
Mhm.
and I will say beforehand, I am a WWF kid,
Mhm.
and you pretty much just answered it for me. So, growing up, you were a WWF kid, or you were
Yeah,
NWA
yeah.
slash WCW?
I was a WWF kid. Yeah. I mean, I would watch well, and at that time, it
You
was NWA wrestling,
right.
but I would watch it, and I was a big WCCW. I was into the Von Erichs too.
Yeah.
I will say I kind of watched it all, but my main focus was WWF. Yes.
Yeah. See, when I got the only time I could watch WCCW or what came up after that was it US was it U USWA?
USWA. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Um,
USWA.
was the only time I can watch that is if I was sick or if I skipped school because here in Belleville at that time it would come on like midday. It was so weird.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, that
Huh.
would be the only time I was able to because uh, yeah, it was my first time seeing Kevin. I thought Kevin Von Erich was like the best of all of them. I don't know. It was just
Hmm.
that appeal, that look that he had. I thought
Sure. He
Kevin
had a
was
great look.
cool. Right.
Hmm.
Kevin was cool because I never seen someone wrestle without boots on before. That was the
Sure.
first time I seen that. That was weird.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
thinking you're automatically throwing yourself in a default because all they got to do is step on your toes. you know.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I was definitely a WWF kid, and I went through this before too. My father, has the same hairline as I did, as
Hmm.
I do. Bald on top, and I could grow it on the sides and the back. And his was
Good
blonde
sport.
hair before it went gray. So he had the Hulk Hogan look. He swung a hammer for a living, so he had the pythons.
So he's a big boy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, how long was your training for? How long did you train before your first match?
4.5 months.
That's
I
That's
quick.
actually pretty quick.
Yeah. I started in what was it? No, I'm sorry. It was 5 months. I started.
Still quick.
I started in December of '89, and I had my first match late December, mid December, and then I started my first match. It was in May of it was in May of '90. Yeah,
Do you remember who it was against?
Executioner. Yeah, guy
Oh
was
wow,
the he was called the Executioner. Wore a mask. His name was Rick Robertson, and it was funny. I couldn't get a license because I was too young.
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
had to be 18.
yeah,
So what they did was they had, how they have the commissioner come and check everything, ticket sales and all that stuff.
right.
They put me on towards the later part of the night. Because by the third match he usually left. So Tony would put me on like fourth or fifth, something like
Uh-huh.
that. And he put me on fifth that night. And the executioner made me look like a superstar.
Really?
I mean, oh yeah, Rick was good. And I finally I turned 18 in August of that year. So from May to August, that's what they had to do. They had to put me on towards the end.
That's crazy. I mean, that's super cool, but yeah, definitely crazy.
Yeah.
Um, now, You said your father pretty much will drop you off. Did he stick around and watch the training and all?
Nope.
He just dropped you off and go?
Mm-mm. Yep. Said, here you go. You're on your own. Yeah. Said, here you
Now,
go.
you actually had a pretty amazing career. I mean, just at the last show, I was sitting by you and you're talking about all these cards that you were on with, all these legends. How did
Oh, man.
how did you start? Or when did you
Um,
start traveling around, and who were you going with? And
well, I got my first big deal when we went up to Windy City Wrestling in Chicago. And I just graduated from high school. And they had a TV show up there that was, it was pretty, they had a pretty good following. And I did pretty good. I had a tryout because Ron was already heavyweight champion up there. And
okay,
then they were looking for a guy to come in and wrestle their lightweight champion. And I had a tryout in a small town. And then I got on their big show, which was like their WrestleMania show in May. And it was in the Chicago Amphitheater. And there was a lot of scouts there and stuff like that.
oh, I bet.
And, I got a lot of guys that I talked to and stuff like that. But the big thing for me was getting a chance to work for Larry. I mean, I was 20 years old, and he was putting me because he was still promoting in Belleville. He
Right.
would put on a couple shows here and there, and God, he would have all these guys come in. He would have Terry Funk and Greg Valentine and Orton and Dick Murdoch, and I'm like a kid in a candy store. I watched all these guys when I was a kid, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, holy crap! There's Harley and there's Dick and
Yeah.
and little by little, I would get a chance to maybe be in a battle royal with them, and they could see, that I wasn't going to hurt them or they weren't going to get hurt by me. So then I would get to work with Valentine, or I get to work with, Honky Tonk, or you know, uh, even Tommy Rich and guys like that.
Nice.
So yeah, it was really cool. I was on a card a couple times with the Von Erichs, both Kevin and Kerry.
Damn.
Um, you name it. A lot of the big names in the '80s that I grew up with, that I got to be on the card with, and a lot of it was because my foot in the door with Larry.
I mean,
So
that's unbelievable. I think you're the first guest that we've had on that was actually on a Larry ran only show.
yeah,
I mean, that's awesome because
that was
you hear
back.
Herb talking about him, and I've heard Larry talk about him, but I never knew you were on those cards.
They
That's
were
extremely cool.
phenomenal. They were
Yeah.
really cool. We did 3 shows in one weekend. It was a Friday night, a Saturday, and a Sunday.
That's a lot of
And I
hustle.
remember, huh?
So that's a lot of hustle.
Oh my God. But I was, at that time, I'm 20 years old. I'm like, let's go. And I was Jack back then. So it was like, I'm ready. But
Yeah.
the third one was at the Belleville East High School. And I wrestled Gary. And they actually made me a heel. And it was like my first time kind of being a heel and stuff like that. Man, it was fun. Had so
Isn't it
much fun.
isn't it weird that Gary still looks the same now as he did during that match?
That man has found the fountain of youth, and I wish he'd give me some of it too. Because he's awesome, man. I'm telling you. I told him that the other night. I'm like, dude, you don't even change. You haven't changed in all the years that I've known you. So,
Yeah. We just the Ace Academy. We did this thing on our page. That it's a secret Facebook page, but we are posting all the videos that we can find that Gary was in. And so we posted the Gary versus Razor Ramon, Gary versus Shawn
oh
Michaels,
yeah, yeah,
Gary Gary versus Paul Levesque when he was in WCW, Triple H. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
it's just amazing.
Yep.
And yeah, he looks the same. But it was great for the students because it was kind of like their homework. For their homework, we have them once a week. They got to post a promo in the chat group. They got to post a match that they watched and what they took from the match.
Hmm.
And then it's not like I can force them to, but we required them to post a workout program that they did. And they got to do that 3 times a week. So they got to
Hmm.
go to the gym and post what they did. But yeah, so one week, I don't know who started it, but someone like popped in like, I can't believe Gary Jackson wrestled this. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. Just let me type this in because I know who all he's wrestled.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just opens the eyes that of the talent that's in our locker room that they can go to and talk to them about situations like what was it like working in WCW or WWE, and it's great now that you're back kind of in the fold of the locker room too. Don't be surprised if they start coming up to you and start. A lot of them are shy, but once they
Well,
know they can
and I
go,
hope they do, and I hope I can. I hope I can help them out. I mean, that's what I love to do. I might not have all the answers, but I'll sure as hell try. And um, and that's kind of the thing. When we traveled, it was usually Ron and myself and Gary, and we went all over the place. And we went up to Chicago and we worked for Paul Alberstein, who did the AWF, and you can actually see some of those matches on YouTube. And he had everybody. He had Slaughter. He had Santana. I mean, he had all the names of the '80s, and this was in the '90s.
nice.
I actually got a chance to work Michael Hayes, and you talk about stiff. Oh my lord, very stiff. But we went up there numerous times to wrestle with all those guys, and they liked me and Gary so much that they made us a tag team, and we would actually, go out there and work Valentine and Tommy Rich in a pretty decent match, and they would give us a lot of stuff because they knew, well, these guys aren't going to hurt us, and we can work with them.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of good opportunities like that, and I learned so much from those guys, so much.
Oh yeah, and just probably you learned a lot just driving up there with Gary and Ron because.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, and that's one of the big things too. Like with the way it is today, they have all these writers and they give you the script that you're supposed to read, and this is what you're supposed to say. Well, that kind of takes away from the feeling of the wrestler trying to get that emotion across to people. If you're going to give me lines, in other words, you have to make it so that you believe yourself what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, if you give somebody lines, where's the creativity from that wrestler? Where's that? A lot of
It,
times the promoter would just say, okay, this is the way I'm looking at kind of the way I want it to go. Now you guys make it get there,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
it lets
and,
them
and
have their own emotion and their own voice to it.
absolutely. If you're trying to portray this emotion, shouldn't you be the one coming up with this?
Right. Yeah. On
And
that note, Nathan, you got that loaded up? That interview?
You read my mind, Jim.
Yes. Let's put this on, and we'll say what emotion has come out of you during this video.
I just watched this one.
Think about your opponent tonight. Your thoughts on that brutal attack? My thoughts? My thoughts. When you're in this business, you break into this business to be the best at what you do, bar none.
this is true.
I did that in January when I won this title. The fact that I became the classic wrestling champion just eats Brian Powers alive.
First,
This is good. Or better than him.
There's that emotion.
Yeah.
On his actions, you guys have been longtime friends. You know, we've been up and down that road. We've said it many, many times. We talk about the constant pain, the constant travel, and everything that goes to being a professional wrestler. We always said if we became champion, each one of us would watch each other's back. Well, as plans are made, plans go awry. And last month, Ron Powers chose to do the wrong thing, and he showed his true colors. Now, tonight, I'm going to take him out. And you know something? When it comes right down to it, he can't stand the fact that I'm better than him. Comments earlier tonight about what he's going to do to you tonight. Your thoughts? You know, I've been dealing with big men since I've been in this business. I've gone and shown that I can beat the odds time and time again. It doesn't matter. I faced every big man in this business, and I came out on top. Ron Powers, tonight, it's going to be no different. I got to know. I know these fans are wondering, what's with the broom? You know something? What's with the broom? You sold your soul to the devil. Just let him know that tonight your ass is mine. And tonight, I'm going to sweep the ring with you.
You remember this, Danny?
I remember that now. Yeah. I remember that we were talking about that. Ron and I were talking about. He's like, okay, I'm going to say this about you and blah blah blah. And it was actually his idea at the very, And I told him I'm probably going to say this. I'll just let the emotions run wild or whatever. And he said, here, take this broom out. And I said, for what? He says, tell him you're going to sweep the ring with me tonight. And I was like, yeah, that's really good. I like that. So, yeah. But,
How many times have you
yeah,
wrestled Ron Powers?
oh, more times than I'd like to say. But we had a big, in 97 when he came back down to Broadway, I had turned heel for a while down there. And we played it up like he didn't know. And then I kind of jumped him from behind in the ring when he was doing an interview. And we did a run from about 97 through 98, 99, and just tore that place apart. We had such a good angle going. And yeah, we had so many people pissed off at me and hating me. And it was fun. But I wrestled him a lot. A lot.
Nathan, I know we didn't probably preload this video, but there was the commercials for the furniture store.
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
I did a spot with Danny, and I suplexed him on the bed. There was a bed.
You choke slammed me.
Oh, choke slammed you.
You choke slammed me.
He remembers it well.
I remember it well.
But before that happened, we were talking about, well, what happens if this thing breaks? And they were talking about, oh, well, this thing is made out of the finest wood. This will never break. They started hyping up this bed frame and the mattress and all. And I went to choke slam and it broke the fucking
Boom.
bed.
It broke. Yeah. Yep.
So
much for that bed. Yep.
Right.
That was funny. That's where you came up and said, I said something about I said something about comfort and support. I wish we had one of these in the ring or something. And then he pops his head up with his mask on. He goes, this must be memory foam. I mean, it was hilarious. We had so much fun that night.
We do have it on the page, but it's going to take me a bit to find it.
Oh, no, I knew it wasn't preloaded, so it was fine. It was just something I thought of at the time. But so where all have you been? Because I heard, did you go to Japan?
I did not get to go to Japan. The closest I I've never wrestled out of the States. There was a time when it was set up where I was going to go to Puerto Rico, but it fell through.
Ah,
But yeah, I was going to go to Puerto Rico and wrestle for Colon, actually, Carlos Colon, and
now
that kind
this
of fell through.
was this prior to what happened to Brody, or after? I guess it
This
happened
was
in.
after Brody. And I was kind of spooked about it because I was like, oh man, do I really want to go over there? But I was trying to push myself to get a
Yeah.
little farther than where I was. So,
It
but
still would have been cool, but
that was right around the time when I was getting scouted from WWF at that time.
well, now that
I
you
had
brought that up,
well, this was '96, and they were bringing in. They had brought in Benoit and Guerrero and Malenko and all those guys over to WCW, and from what I understood, that was the time when the smaller guys started breaking in, and they were going, "Okay, give the smaller guys a chance because we're seeing they can really wrestle."
right?
And so I was wrestling for a promoter in Kansas City, and they had a syndicate show. I forget what the name of it was, but the promoter was Dan Adams, and he had called me one day, and he had saw a match, or he had called me one day and told me that Chief Jay Strongbow, had called him asking for my number and said, "Who's that kid that's working there?" And he told him. And when Adams first told me, I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess I'm
Yeah,
going to be president of the United States next or something, right? Ha ha.
right. Yeah,
But he's like, well, no, he really does. He said what happened was the WWF was wanting to start, like I said, a lightweight division, and that's when they brought, I forget that young guy's name. He was an Asian guy.
oh
Um,
yeah, the skinny guy.
you remember who I'm talking about? I can't remember his name.
Because he almost broke his neck during a match. He got thrown out
Yeah,
of the ring.
yeah.
Tom.
It was
I know who you're talking about.
some
Yeah.
funky name. But anyway,
Wasn't Tanaka, was it?
No,
I
It
don't
wasn't
think
one of the
so.
wasn't one of the Kaientai guys, was it?
he.
No.
Well, it was in an earlier part of that group. He didn't wear a shirt. He wore long pants.
Right. And he
Uh,
wore the wrestling shoes. He didn't wear
yes.
boots. He wore wrestling shoes, actually. But I can't remember his name. He was like their first lightweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I told him, I said, yeah, give him my number, which I didn't believe he'd ever call. Well, it was 2 days later. I got home from work, and there was a message on my phone. Chief Jay Strongbow left a message saying, hey, we're real interested in I'm real interested in your work. We're starting a lightweight division for the WWF. Can you send me some more footage? So he sent me an address, sent me
Was it
where to
Taka
send it to.
Michinoku?
Yeah, because there was no internet. So I had to send him videotapes of different matches and stuff like that. So I think it was a week later he called me again and he said, yeah, hey, we really like it. I'm taking it up to Stanford. And I'm going to try and get you in for a tryout. So it was down at Broadway. I had a match and Larry had showed up. And I asked him, I said, is this legit? And he said, yeah. He said, they're doing this and Strongbow is the talent scout for that. He said, so if they call you, you better go. And then I talked to Bob Orton about it too, and he's like, kid, if you get a chance, you get your ass up there.
Yeah.
So
You weren't looking for the name Taka Michinoku, were you?
That's who it was.
that's it. That's
I
who
said
it was.
I like him.
Yep.
Even with a weird indie gimmick, he was still cool.
He was a great worker. But so then a couple of weeks go by, and he kept up with me for quite a while. Trying to get a date to go up there, and I was all set to go. And then I hadn't heard from him for a while, and I saw Larry again, and I said, I haven't heard from Strongbow. Have you heard anything? And he says, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Strongbow got fired.
Oh.
I was like, oh, man.
So anything he touched was now poison.
Yep. So that's kind of how that turned out.
Was that your biggest almost break, or did you
Yeah,
work for WCW at all? Or
I worked for WCW. I did a couple dark matches. I got a chance to do that, and it was with a couple of the other local guys that they were looking at. They wanted to see how we would work together and stuff like that. So I did get to do 2 dark matches with WCW, and they liked me and stuff like that. I almost got. There was one night we went up and we went up for a nitro, and I was told to bring my gear, and I had met Benoit before and gave him one of my videotapes. And I said, can you just look at this and tell me what you think? So the next time when I saw him at Nitro, he walked up to me and he said, did you bring your gear? And I said, yeah, it's in the car. And he said, well, the guy I'm supposed to work tonight, which was Brad Armstrong, hasn't shown up yet. And he said, I'd like to see if you and I could work. And I'm like,
hell yeah.
and I went and told Ron, and Ron's like, yeah, hello. So we kind of had it set up, and we were actually talking about stuff we were going to do. And then Armstrong showed up at the last minute, and I was like, ah. But that didn't pan out. So, but for me, just to have the biggest company in the world at the time to scout me and not having it in like a dad or an uncle or anything like that, little old B from St. Louis, Missouri, I mean, that was huge. And I'd only been in the business for 7 years.
So that was one of my questions earlier. You said your dad's not anything with the business?
No, nothing.
I said the way you said that him and Tony kind of set it up to beat the piss out of you, I wondered from there.
I think it was just when they met each other, I think Tony was sick and tired of having me call him all the time. And I think my dad was sick and tired of me talking about it all the time. So they had that mutual agreement of like, yeah, we'll beat the shit out of him and he'll go away. But
so
no,
did your dad ever come around to the idea of you wrestling, and was he like super proud of you for almost making it to both companies?
Well, the first time that I had won the Missouri and Illinois heavyweight title, he would go around to people and say, "That's my boy." My boy's a champion. But when it wasn't until years later he was like, "I never wanted you to do it because I didn't want you to get hurt."
Right.
Of course, being a parent. But yeah, he was super proud of me because that was a hard time to get in. Somebody of my size who was not a big guy.
Yeah. So, what difficulties did you actually face, throughout your career because of your height and size?
It was mainly that Larry Matisick, and it, like I said, at that time, it was still the land of the giants. Larry Matisick had always told me, he said, Danny, if you were, 6'4" and 275, they'd have been signing you up as a champion somewhere. Or if it would have been the territories, you would have been somebody's, heavyweight champion somewhere. Yeah. But he said it was just, wrong place at the wrong time, And then with Vince taking over all the territories, that kind of killed stuff too for everybody, all the independents, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But once the late 90s came around, I had pushed real hard, and body was starting to hurt, So,
Yeah.
but
So, how did I know we, as a wrestler, we always say that we're going to retire, and some of us do, and then we come back into it. Now, I was around for your first, well, probably not your first run, but your first run as SICW champion, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, what made you step away that time? Because then you also came back a little later on. Um,
um, were you around? Yeah, you were around when I left. See, I left in '01. I was the heavyweight champion at the time, and I had a match with Blackheart, John Blackheart.
oh yeah.
The next day I woke up, and when I woke up I noticed I had all these floaters going on when I would look around in my eyes, and I'm like, what the heck's going on here, So later that week I went to the eye doctor, and he said, you have a retina that's ready to detach. And he
Oh,
said, if it detaches, you'll go blind. I'm like, so what are you saying? He says, you can't wrestle anymore.
okay.
From the He said, first of all, you wear glasses, your eyes are bad. He says, now from all the contact that you've had all these years, that just adds to the problem. So I thought, well, I can't lose my eyesight, so I
Right.
guess I know what I'm doing. So then, and I said, so what's the deal? I said, am I stuck with this? And he says, no, if you stay away, it will eventually um, repair itself.
Oh, so
I
you
said,
didn't have
okay.
surgery or anything?
No, I didn't have to have surgery or anything. So I was able to, it was able to kind of repair itself. So then that was 2001. In 2009, I get a phone call from Tony Costa. Hey, I got this idea. Or no, it was 2009. They wanted to do this old veterans, old timers match or something like that, and it was me and Tony Costa and Keith Smith against Gary, and you guys remember Cecil, Philly
Yep.
Blunt, and I think it was somebody else. I can't remember who the other person was. And they said, well, it's going to be a one-time thing, no big deal. We just want to do it. And okay, all right. And at this time I was like 37, and I'm going, God, do I even have it anymore? Because I hadn't been training, nothing. So we wound up doing that, and it went really well, and I still could go pretty good. And then it wasn't 2 weeks later, Herb and Larry both called me and said, "Hey, we got this idea," and I'm going, "Oh my God, my wife's going to kill me." And that kind of went from 2009 till 2011,
hmm
and that's I had that match with Ron, that very last match where he took the title, and then we went to the fairgrounds, and I pinned him in the tag match with Bob Orton. And then I noticed that my back was hurting me really bad. Went and got that tested. I had degenerative disc disease that I found out in the S1, the L4, and the L5.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, you know what happens there. So
Yeah.
then that's when I said, okay, I'm done. I can't do this no more. And that was 2011.
Wow.
So
I don't know, but on the 13th, you had some pretty good moves on you.
yeah, yeah,
What does the
yeah.
wife think now?
You're just doing the referee thing, right? Yeah, honey. Yeah, that's it.
Hey, so Danny boy, we were talking and we have an idea.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah,
said,
All
you got
exactly.
physical with Glenn Williams for me a couple months ago, and I appreciated that.
I'm sorry.
I said you got
right.
physical with Glenn Williams a couple months ago, and I appreciated that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was fun. I had a blast, Bobby. I had a blast.
Is this the cage match you got set up?
Yeah, this is the 13th.
All right. You want to watch a little bit of this cage match?
Sure. Absolutely.
While this is playing, so I love YouTube, and it's mainly because I found that I've had maybe one or two mini concussions where I don't remember a lot of the matches that I've had.
Yeah.
Uh, and so
Yeah.
I was able to, do a deep dive into YouTube and find all these matches that I just don't remember having.
Right.
And in that tournament that you won, the SICW championship, I was one of the guys you beat to advance yourself in that tournament.
Yes. You were
Yeah,
second match.
and it's just some of these matches. I'm watching it because and I'm interested in it because I don't fucking remember.
And that was a good match. I had
Yeah.
a great match with Bobby to start out with, I think it was, right?
I don't remember that.
I think you and I had 3 matches that night.
Right.
Um,
Because
you were what's the gimmick with the mask?
I was still the Big Texan, but I was
Right,
part of
right.
guerrilla warfare.
Right. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
And I wrestled. I think it was Bobby in the beginning, the first match, the Texan, and then it was.
Devon. I think it was Devon, wasn't it?
No, it was Espinoza.
Espinoza, that's right. So it probably wasn't Bobby. I think it was Devon, me, and then Espinoza.
Could have been, yeah.
Maybe
you're right.
Sorry, go ahead, Nate.
Once, but I don't remember wrestling against you.
Oh, I'm the only one here.
Hello?
I was the
What
only one on
happened
my
with
screen.
that?
Oh, okay. Yep, there we go.
Yeah. Not too sure what happened there.
That was a
That's our
straight
tech master Nate
GoToMeeting issue.
messing with settings.
That was the program. That wasn't us. That blinked all of us out.
I see myself. I don't know about you guys.
I
I
saw
see
myself.
everybody.
I see everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do now, but for a second,
Right.
Yeah. It
All
went
right,
out
Nathan.
for a second, but it's all good.
Go ahead and roll it, Nate.
Oh, it's already rolling.
Oh.
I was just thinking, Danny Boy smacked you so hard you forgot a whole year of your life.
I forgot a few years of my life.
we have a thing in this business called concussions.
Yes, we do. I had plenty of them. I'll tell you this story. Ron and I were in the ring one night. We were going at it, and he hit me with an elbow to the head. It was almost one of those things where you could hear like everything in my head just go smush. I mean, it felt like someone taking putting a tomato in their hand and then just squishing it. That's how my brain felt.
Oh my
I've
I
had
had
concussions
a
like that.
I had a very similar experience with him.
Yeah.
He was going to
Yeah.
throw a clothesline at me, and I did not get low, and it hit me
Oh,
on the top of my head, and it felt like that. It felt like my nose was going to start bleeding. Everything hit the top of my head. I
yeah.
just cried.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
You
so
know,
Danny
his.
Boy, on this, when they're charging outside the ring, how come you didn't go over and lay down the law?
He was probably
I think
busy kissing babies.
I think I was. Yes. I think I was.
I saw when he came out, there was a girl came up and hugged him, got real excited.
Oh, I know what that was my wife.
Was it?
That was my wife.
Dang.
Yeah. And
She
she's
was
So she
really
was
never
happy to
excited
done
to
see
that.
see
you.
you in there.
Yeah, she's never done that in all the years we've been together. That was the first time she's ever done that.
That was
But the
awesome,
reason I
though.
wasn't out, on the floor was because Stephen E had tied the or closed the door, and he tied the door together, so I couldn't get
Oh.
out.
Oh, that's why.
But yeah, this match was really fun.
Broke each side of the cage once.
Yeah, when I got the door open, I kicked it and I didn't realize that it wasn't secure to the ring, and it almost fell like over. I was like, "Oops." I noticed a couple times when they threw each other into the cage that the ring crew would come over there and stand and kind of push it back.
Well,
Yeah, it's
so
coming up here in a little bit too.
I've wrestled in this cage a handful of times, and when we hit, we never made the cage fall, but it would scoot all the way to the edge.
Yeah, that's what
And
this one was
yeah,
doing. Yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there it broke it in half on the third segment.
And it looks like that cage is very unforgiving.
Oh, it is.
It is.
It's not like the old-fashioned chain link fence
Not the
where you got
chain
a little
link. No.
Some
Uh-uh.
bars are welded in.
So I've got your third referee match coming next month.
Hmm.
So we can do it off camera. How much money I have to give you to
Well,
kind of work on my behalf. I mean,
Gary took care of me on the last one really well, so I'm expecting the same thing from you. But yeah, no, we'll call it straight down the middle, and as long as he stays out of the way, we'll be fine.
yeah, because I'm sure Stephen E will be out there again,
Yep, yep.
but maybe not since he took a right hand from you. So.
Yeah, yeah, he might not be there. You never know. You
I
never
say, if
know.
we're lucky, you broke his jaw and he can't talk.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And Attila, the best bleeder and cheater in the ring.
In the business. Yep. Yep.
Hey, did you ever work for Harley's League,
Hmm.
WLW?
Yeah. 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 I got up there for a little bit. That was fun
That's
too.
awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. He was super cool guy, Harley. He's
I was just going to
one of
ask
my
if you had any
favorites.
stories.
Just just his talking to him and his mannerisms, just all this. Yeah, kid, I'll move, and you will do this, and just his mannerisms and everything. He was super cool guy,
Yeah.
and I just love listening to him tell stories.
Oh, I only got a couple times with him when Herb would bring him in. I didn't get the
Hmm.
chance to go out and work with them, but when he would come in, I remember sitting around that table in the old, the firehouse. The back room always had a table that was out, and
Hmm.
he was sitting down, and I was talking to him, and I was asking him, what was your favorite place to wrestle? And I still remember it. He told me Japan, and I was like, really, Japan? Why Japan? And he goes, well, they're totally quiet during the whole match, and you really got to know your you got to be on your A game. You got to know what you're doing because at the end, that's when they're going to tell you if they liked it or they didn't like it.
Right,
So
right,
you had to, know your shit so you can get the reaction that you wanted to at the end of the match instead of, the
right.
American wrestling where you get it right then and there when you want it.
I remember hearing Terry Funk kind of say the same thing. He said when he went there the very first time that he wasn't getting a reaction the way he wanted, and he thought, "Oh shit, I must be doing bad because they weren't doing anything."
Right.
And he when he said he got back in the locker room, he said he finally realized that he talked to Harley and a couple other guys that no, that's you know
Yeah,
when they
that they
applaud
were
for you at the end and they're completely quiet, they're into you.
right.
And it's a totally different
Yeah, it's like
atmosphere with them.
they respect you so much that they don't want to make any noise to like interfere in your match.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yep.
Well, that's not like it
Yep.
is here.
Well,
It's
sometimes
deafening at
it can be
SICW shows.
it can be great motivation when you hear the fans start rallying you up and chanting your names and
Oh
it kind
yeah.
of
You
pumps
know.
you up, and over there you don't have that pump up. So that's one
Right.
thing you had to know what you're doing and how to wrestle to get that reaction. So I mean,
I think that's why Brody did what he did by, walking out in the crowd and waving the chain and having them all move, to get a reaction out of him like he did because they were scared to death of him.
yeah,
So
Yeah, that entrance with the chain waving, that one was great.
yeah,
thank
that
God no
was
one
cool.
sued anyone. Back in the day,
No,
I'm
not in
sure
those
so many
days. No,
people would be suing him.
left and right.
Right.
Yep,
Okay, Danny,
yep.
as a wrestler, you weren't that blind. How much did you have to go blind for this match to be a ref?
Um, uh, I had to look other ways sometimes. Yes, the referee's always blind. You know that.
Yep.
He could never see everything.
Right.
Only when it's critical. Only
So,
when it's critical.
what was your best match or your favorite match that you ever had?
Oh my gosh. I think some of the best matches I ever had were with Pete Madden,
I only got
the
one
Human
with
Wrecking
Pete.
Ball.
Yeah.
Um, man, him and I just clicked, and it was pure magic. We didn't have to say anything. We didn't have to do anything. Um,
Yeah.
some of my best matches were with Pete. I loved working. I loved being able to work guys like Valentine and Honky Tonk and guys like that were so knowledgeable, and they taught me, the psychology part of this whole thing.
Uh huh.
Um, Other matches, I loved working with Ron. I knew I was gonna come out physically different than when I went in, but we had some great psychology to our matches and stuff. That was fun. One of the biggest things for me though is when I won the Missouri and Illinois heavyweight title the first time. Because when I broke in the business, they told me I would never be that because I was too small.
That is awesome.
And I
Now
thought,
I got
okay, I'm going to prove you wrong.
yeah.
Now you
Um,
said first time. How many times did you get it?
3 times.
Three?
Yeah, the last time I beat Ron for it. Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you now. When I got to wrestle Valentine, it was still early in my career, and I
Hmm.
knew you had to respect the veterans. So I went over to Valentine, and I'm just seeing if he had the same experience. Uh, so I sat next to him, shook his hand, said, "Hey, sir, it's me and you tonight. I just want to know if you had any thoughts on the match, on what you wanted to do." And he told me pretty much how the match was going to go.
Hmm.
Then, when the bell rang and we were inside the ring, nothing went the way he said it was. He like
Right,
totally
right.
threw it out the window and just did other things.
The big,
Uh, did it happen to you too? Was it the same
the
kind? I
biggest
mean,
thing with the biggest thing with those guys, uh, back then, everything you called your finish, and you called the beginning, and you called the finish, and everything else was just ad libbed, and you called it out there. So there wasn't a whole bunch of, hey, we're going to do this, and now guys go through their matches and they got every freaking move that they're going to do that they say.
oh yeah,
And back then, those guys, that was the difference between then and now too, is because, okay, let's say we have a match that we have that we think is going to work tonight, and then you get out there and you hear nothing but crickets.
right,
So then you have to do something different
yeah.
to make them
Well,
respond. And those guys were kind of spontaneous guys where they'd get out and they'd listen to the crowd and then they go, okay,
yeah,
I kind of know where. So, but no, I never got that. When I talked to him, uh, I said the same thing. You know, I said, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I've seen you wrestle. You're a good worker. We'll just go out there and let's get a feel and see what happens." And
There you go.
that's what we did. So
Now, I don't remember the guy's name, and I feel sorry because he was a great guy. He is the one that has the full Bruiser Brody tattoo on his back. It was like a picture, like straight out of wrestling at the Chase, but he's got the whole thing on his back.
I know who
And
you're talking about, and I can't forget. I forgot his name too.
I remember he was working Lightfoot. And you know how it was down at the gym. Even if you're practicing and training, when someone came in that actually had a match on the show, they took precedent and was able to work on their match, and then
Right.
we would
Sure.
be able to get back in. But he had a notebook, and it kind of reminded me of like the stuff that you hear from Diamond Dallas Page, or Macho Man versus Steamboat, how they wrote everything down, and
They
that's what
wrote
this guy
everything
did.
down. Yeah. Yeah.
He had a notebook out, and as they walked through it, he had the notebook and the pen in the ring, and as they walked through the whole match, he wrote the whole thing down. And I'm thinking,
Right.
wow, I would not be able to remember any
I
of
couldn't
that,
do it
even
either.
if I wrote it down or not. But
Because here's the thing about that. When you do that, okay, you forget a spot, and then there's that, and people see that.
yeah, right.
That's the problem with doing that.
Well, so later on in my career, me and Espy would wrestle quite a bit, and
Hmm.
he would just call me up out of the blue and say, "Hey, can you drive down here tonight? There's an opening on the card, and we need to fill it." So, which was great for SB. I give him props for doing that. Getting me
Hmm.
booked to other places. But
Sure.
there was one night that he called me up like that, and I said, "Man, it's 45 minutes away, and it starts in a half an hour." you know,
Right.
and
Right.
he goes,
Right.
"Just come, and I'll get everything worked out. Get you, further on the card." And I was like, "All right." So I drive down there, and I'm, in the locker room, sitting down. I already greeted the other guys, so I'm starting to get dressed, and he comes over. And he goes, "I already got our match worked out. This is what we're going to do." And he starts, doing it line by line. And at the end, he goes, "All right, you got it?" I said, "Yeah, sure thing." And he walked away. And another wrestler came up to me. He goes, "Are you really going to remember all that?" And I said, "No." I said, "I
Mm-mm.
remember the first thing we were going to do." And I said, "We'll just wing it from there."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
remember you telling me about the guy with the notebook. I'm trying to it's racking my brain. I was wanting to say it had like Kid Cash in his name or something.
It's something like that, yeah.
huh?
Kid Carey was it? Or
You
oh
always
man,
told me he was a smaller guy. I never met him, but I
yeah,
remember
he
you
was very
talking about the
skinny,
notebook.
had very long blonde hair. Um, Kid Carey or something like that.
I
But
remember
yeah,
the stories of the notebook when we first started training. The
Yeah.
only
See,
thing I can find online on the tattoo is someone named Dan Bell.
oh, that's not him.
No.
uh-uh. Uh-uh.
Like
Yeah,
when I searched the tattoo, that's all I can find on the tattoo.
See, and
his
that,
picture.
and most of the guys that I ever worked with are the old timers back then would have taken that notebook and went, okay, yeah, sure,
you know,
right.
uh, quick story with Blackheart. He was there one of the nights that I was down there, and he was telling me, he goes, "Hey, if anyone ever gives you shit in this place, and you find out you're wrestling him," he goes, "what I want you to do is take a little bottle of lemon juice, and before your match, you douse your hands with that lemon juice. So when you first lock up with that sucker, you rub your fingers right in his eyes."
Yep, yep, yep,
I was like, that's awesome. What did I get myself into here?"
yep, yep. God,
A
there's all
black heart,
kinds of
yeah.
stuff. Did you get a chance to ever work him?
No, I never did.
Really?
He was down there a lot. Him and Rick Brewer. Um,
Brewer
yeah,
was fun to work too. Yep, yep.
yeah. But I loved it. It was I was so out of my element because, again, I was probably 17 or 18 when I was going through that. Maybe 18-ish going on 19. And, being a young kid, and I'm from this side of the river, so I never drove over there. Matter of fact, I tell this story a lot. When I was first training, it wasn't even through South Broadway. There was a guy that used to wrestle for South Broadway that was kind of on the outs of Tony. His name was Blade. It was a black guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he got a group of us together, and we were training at the YMCA here in Belleville. And we had no wrestling ring, no big crash mats. We had the wrestling mats that like Bobby teaches his students on.
Sure.
And we were taking bumps on a basketball floor with just that little mat. And then his check started bouncing at the YMCA. So we got kicked out of the YMCA. And then so he snuck us into Broadway. And this was actually my first being let go of Broadway before that whole match with Jerome Cody. I don't talk about this one much because, I should have never been let back in. But so Blade would sneak us into South Broadway. He would go in first, make sure there's no one in there. And then we would go in and he would teach us, bumps on the ring and everything and try to work something out. And then, little Tony just happened to come in there one night. And immediately, as soon as he opened the door and seen this guy, just started laying into him. And after Tony was in, then some other people came in. And, they like almost physically tossed this guy out the door and kind of, let us all go. And then so when I knew the place was there, I waited a couple months and then went back on my own.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully everyone, would forget about me being part of that group. And so I started training there on my own. But it was such, Belleville kid driving out to St. Louis, never drove out there before. I even got lost coming back home the first couple of times.
Yeah.
I would call up my cousin and be like, I think I made a left and I was supposed to make a right. Can you?
Right. Yeah.
But that was all part of it. It was a way that we all grew up. We were exploring and found something we loved and went with it. So I couldn't ask for a better teaching. But
no, we like I said, when I was training for it, I was in there with Blackheart and Jackson, and oh my God, I would get in there with Ron and he would just throw me around like a rag doll, and but that's and they were not light. I mean, they were tough, and they were just seeing, I guess, if I was tough enough to take it,
And if I tell the students they wanted to see if you were going to come back,
right?
Because if you didn't come back, they didn't have to spend the time with you. So,
absolutely.
And that was one of the driving points that kind of instilled in me. It's like, they tell me I suck. They tell me all this. I'm coming back though. And as much as they beat me down, next week I was back, and then, they wouldn't let me go. They just kept bringing in new students and just had me ride the bench with the new students. New students. It took me about a year of practice, of training and practicing, and then they still cut me. And then, I found my way back with Bobby coming back, so it's.
How long did you stay out, when they cut you?
Well, I went and did semi-pro football for 2 years. So I think I was probably out 3 or 4, after they cut me.
I would say it was 2006 when I brought you, 2005, 2006 when I brought you in. Because I had a friend go with me and he made it one practice.
Gotcha.
Well, Bobby, was the one that told me about the place, and he's like, hey, you got to go out here, yada, yada. And it was like you were describing earlier, like, am I making the right turns? Like, I got MapQuest directions.
Right, right.
I
Who was
remember
training
passing
when
up
you?
that we had the
Who was?
building that you're talking about. We weren't in the back of the hall. So I remember passing that street several times and then calling Texan again, like,
Oh
where's
yeah,
it at?
you could pass it up real easy. Who was training when you started, Bobby?
Anybody you could get to train you.
Really?
I had my old tag team partner train me a lot, Johnny Courageous, Jeremy Lightfoot. Cecil did a little
Okay.
bit, Shaft did a little bit. And I'm currently watching a match. Was it Crazy Kid Curry that you were talking about?
That's who it was. That's the
I'm
guy with the
watching him
Okay.
versus
tattoo.
Lightfoot right now.
Okay.
Crazy Kid Curry. I knew Curry was in it somehow, but yeah, he, you know, notebook every part, headlock, headlock takeover. He wrote it all.
Oh my. Oh
Yeah.
I say,
my.
I'm
No.
not going to lie, when I was training, I didn't have a notebook for matches, but I had a notebook like, these are the different moves you can do to an arm. Then I had a notebook. This was a different things you
Well,
can do
yeah,
to a
that's
leg.
different. I mean, that's different. That you're learning your craft. You know.
It wasn't for an individual match.
Right. Exactly.
And I
Let me.
still have that in my phone that I'll read before a match every once in a while.
I
Right.
Most of
can't.
the time.
I can't remember this guy's name, Danny, but I know he was a police officer on his day job. He was maybe the same height as you. It would
Hmm.
be blonde hair, and he would tan all the time for the matches. I can't remember his name, but I know he came down one night for our practice,
Hmm.
and we were practicing with him. And I guess he had just tanned, and he was
Yeah.
wearing a white singlet. And by the time we got done practicing with him, his white singlet looked like he shit himself. You know, and he was bitching because he had just bought that singlet for the show that weekend.
That now that wasn't it wasn't Billy Diamond, was
No, it
it?
wasn't Billy. This guy had more
Okay.
of a stalking like body type, but he was about your height. He was short, but he was like stalking.
Hmm.
But I do remember he was a police officer on the side. Well, for his day job.
I say
Yeah.
I can't see Billy Diamond being a police officer.
No,
No, no, I can't either. Now that you
maybe
say
in
that.
cosplay, but that's.
Right, right,
I say
right.
he posts some
Hey,
memes about
Danny,
some
you
real
helped
veteran
train
stuff.
Texan. How
Yeah,
much did you
Do
hurt him
what?
when you were training?
he
I'm
had a
sorry.
couple spots with me. It's just mainly that one day. I think maybe you might have popped in another time or something. I mean, he was already. I think you were already. I don't know if you were retired the first time or if you were
What year
just.
was that? What year was
Oh,
that?
I'm bad with years. I have no idea. It had to be. Like I said, I'm going to be 46 this year, and
Hmm.
I had to be either 19, 18 or 19. So we're talking years ago. Um,
Yeah, I might
but
have just been. I might have just popped in to say hey.
yeah,
I might have been done by then.
but uh, because there was one more class after me, and I say class because that's kind of how it was then. One more
Yeah,
class
yeah.
after me was SB, and then a class after him is when everything went down with Gino and the guy that
The
unfortunately passed
kid.
away.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I mean that was.
yeah,
I know it wasn't Gino's fault. Well, I who knows? I wasn't
yeah. Who
there. I
knows?
can't say.
For another time.
Well,
Yep.
I just don't know. I wasn't
Yeah.
there.
Right.
But evidently the guy took a concussion in the ring and then went home and slept. And I made that same mistake before too, because me and
I
Gary
did too.
Jackson,
We all did.
right? Me and Gary Jackson was in the ring, and I had suplexed Gary, and thank God we were in a tag match because his head bounced off the mat, came back up, and smacked me in my eye and knocked me out. And the
Oh
next,
boy.
I went home and slept like a stupid person. And then the next morning, my face on that side started to drop, and I ended up getting Bell's palsy out of it.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which totally sucked. Which I would say, hands down, that's probably the most not scary thing, but you really find out a lot about people when your face is fucked up and they have to look at you.
Yeah.
You know. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it. But yeah, and eventually, and I still have some of the side effects today. My mouth and my lower eyelid still won't go up all the way, but it definitely is so much better. But so that gentleman went home, slept, and didn't wake up. But
Right.
so who knows actually what happened there? I just heard rumors, but I still to this day respect Gino. And when I came back, and I was back for a few years. Matter of fact, actually, I think Bobby, this is when you had quit Broadway, and I was still. I had just come back to Broadway, was there a couple years, and Gino had come back and started watching the shows. And it took a lot for Gino to come back because by then he was not moving around the best because this was after his motorcycle accident. So. Which really left him pretty much disabled.
Well, Gino,
But
and Gino broke into the business at an older age anyway.
right,
When he got into the business, he was God. I think he was in his 30s already.
I was thinking 40s, but yeah, somewhere around there.
I know it was late 30s, early 40s. Yeah,
Yeah.
when he decided to get in.
But he actually came back and started watching my matches and coming up and talking to me. And then he called me out of the blue. He goes, "Hey, are you on the card tonight?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." He goes, "All right, I got something for you." And so I showed up, and he gave me all of his gear.
Did
So
he?
I have his singlets. I have the last pair of boots he wore, even though they're like I wear a size 13, and I think his are a 10.
Yeah.
but I wasn't going to tell him no. I'm like,
right.
thank you,
Yeah.
And then, when they finally put him in the Hall of Fame that you that you got rewarded with as well, they did that ceremony, of course, at a night of a show. So I was able to, I wore his gear except for the boots. But I had his boots in my corner, and then I left them in the center of the ring when I, won and left. And then,
Very cool.
yeah, so it was because
Good show of respect.
yeah, he wasn't able to do that because he got taken out. That motorcycle accident, he was still going. That motorcycle accident really did him in.
Right.
So yeah, just a sign of respect. You offered it to me, so here's your boots to retire, and
Right.
so that was pretty cool. But
And just going back, we've all slept on a concussion, and it was just by the grace of God that we all woke up. I know I went to sleep on a concussion. I woke up 3 days later. So
yeah, that's
well, no
they're
one
scary.
knew back then, and we all took chair shots to the mullen. Because we all believed back then, if you put your hand up, you're a pussy.
Yeah, exactly. We took it. You took it. Oh, okay, here we go.
Right.
Hell, we believe that now. Bobby took 2 chairs to the head.
Yeah.
Mm.
Did you really? When was this?
Here and there.
Oh, okay, here and there. All right. Well, I mean, I'm having a ball talking to you, but I don't want to take too much of your time. What time is it? You guys?
We've been here for an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Woo. That's
Yeah,
probably
really wow.
Doesn't
yeah.
seem
It
like
goes
it
by
does.
pretty quick, don't it?
Time flies. Yes, it does.
Yes.
The one thing I do want to say, I think you guys are doing a great job with Herb. I got a chance to watch the show, and it brings back the old memories of wrestling at the Chase. It's such a nice setup, and everything is done right, and you guys are doing a great job keeping it going. And I just, it's nice to see the old style still alive somewhere, and someone's doing it right.
Right.
because I don't watch wrestling anymore as far as WWE goes or anything like that. AEW, I don't watch any of that stuff because to me it's like a tennis match. You're doing like
Yes.
this the whole time, you know, and that's not my style of wrestling. I like old school, and watching you guys go out and doing what you're doing is old school, and it's nice to see that it's being preserved.
And I appreciate that, Danny. And we even teach that at the academy because you know, some of the kids want to do that flippy floppy shit, and me and Bob are sitting there. Either I'm in the ring or Bob's in the ring, and there's sometimes that one of them come up to us and say, "Hey, we want to learn this," and I have no idea what he's talking about because this new generation renamed it again. And so
Right.
when I find out what I would have called it, and I have to explain it to Bob because my generation renamed it, from Bob's generation.
Right. Right.
And
Well,
but
and back then, the mentality was always less is better. You know,
right, and
if you
he teaches
do
that.
everything in one match, then what do you got for the next one? And what do you got for the next one? You know,
Right.
the same thing over again.
Yeah.
It
I'm
don't
just
work
not
that
sure
way.
nowadays they can pull off a full hour match with just the same
Nobody
wrestler.
could. I don't think anybody could.
Not a chance.
Well,
Nope, I
and
don't think anybody could.
that's one thing that Bob is good at because and he keeps me in line too because sometimes like when they start doing like a portion of their match, and my head will start thinking, well, you could do this, and then you can do that, and make it so much better. And then even sometimes Bob will pull me back and say, nah, don't have him do any of that. Just let's have him do this. And Bob's really good at making it, keeping it simple, stupid. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I try to do it too, but sometimes I get worked up. Uh, and certain people doing the moves that I start adding things to it, and then Bob's like, no, 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 go, let's draw that back down a little bit.
Right.
But it's such, you know, I talk about how I might not have too much longer in the business myself because all the stuff that we've done is starting to add
Hmm.
up to me.
It
But I'm so
does.
glad that I have a place that I can go and teach the new set, of kids coming through.
Yep.
Uh, Plus, I still get up in the ring and work around with them too. So even if I'm
That's
not able to
that's
take
one
off
thing I've
a couple of years,
that's one thing I've always tried to tell younger guys too. Even when I was, at my peak, I was down there all the time trying to better myself. I was always in the ring trying to, okay, how can I do this better? How can I work on this? There was never that, I've been in it for 10 years. Now I know everything and I don't have to practice anymore. And when you start doing that,
right?
then you
Well,
lose your drive and you can always improve. Always.
I still to this day because sometimes down there when I'm teaching them something, it's like I'm teaching them. I'm a big guy. I do big guy moves, but
Mhm.
and I teach a different way. I teach how a small guy would move, or a small guy would do the catch can, chain wrestling,
Sure.
and it actually helps me in my matches
Hmm.
because if I'm working on a certain spot with these kids and I'm drilling it into their heads, and then God forbid I forget what I want to do in the ring. No, that spot come back into my head, and
Right.
I'll do
Right.
that spot there. So
You know,
it's
we were there was a saying back then, um, if the ring ropes broke and you couldn't use the ring ropes anymore, what would you do? You'd have to go back to simple chain wrestling.
yeah,
Could you do it?
yeah,
And that's where, and it happened a couple times where something would go wrong. Okay, we got to stay on the mat. Well, you better know how to do that to
yeah.
get through that match. And that's what
So
I tell the guys all the time. practice, practice, practice all the
Yeah.
time. And it always goes back to basics.
And we do that in the beginning. At the end of the practice, I will pick two people and actually have a match. But in the beginning, after they've done the bumps and the calisthenics and the rope work, I always have them. And Sean's pretty big at this too, because Sean teaches. Vincent teaches on Thursdays. I teach on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
We both have a habit, and it's a great habit to have. We'll put two people together and say, okay, you got 5 minutes, just chain wrestle, no ropes, no big
Yep.
moves. I just
Yep.
want to see what you can do for 5 minutes, and
Yep.
it's great.
Yep.
And it not to sound funny, but I get so proud of the fact too of watching my students. So
Hey,
it's cool.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If it looks good and you got something going and they're doing good, that's something to be proud of.
Oh
You know,
yes.
Well, if you go
that's
back and watch Sean and Bryce's matches, you can see him chain wrestle a lot in the center of the ring.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I think we should have you back on because I think we can go much longer, and I don't want to.
I would love
Uh,
to.
so I think we pencil you in again, maybe after I grease your palm for the February show.
Yeah, and I won't tell anybody how much you gave me, so don't
All
worry.
right, perfect, perfect.
We'll keep
So
that to
Allegedly.
ourselves.
allegedly.
Allegedly, this is pro wrestling.
Right.
So
Man, I'm so glad that you came on.
I
Some people,
appreciate it. I am honored that you had me on.
well, some people, I go up to and I ask them, and sometimes you get maybe one or two that says, "Oh yeah, I'll do it," and then they'll ghost you from then on out until the next show that you see them. Like, hey, what happened?
Right, right.
Yeah, but. To me, this is, and I tell it to my students because we had them all on here eventually, the ones that graduate.
Hmm.
This is a platform for them. Not that we need a platform anymore because we're pretty much on our way out.
Right.
But I tell them, I said, this is a platform for you guys because, Nate would tell you, we're seen in Florida, we're seen in Texas, we're seen all over the place.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
And this is a way for you to get your foot out there because they might not be able to see you wrestle, but they know that you were on a wrestling podcast and you can talk wrestling and you can
Right,
talk about yourself. So it might get you a foot in the door in a different territory.
right.
Especially if you want to go to UK or Asia, because we're expanding our audience in the UK, France, Italy,
Well,
Japan watches us a lot. Our
Oh, that's
podcast is
awesome.
besides Japan too.
rebroadcast in Arabic, so
I
Wow,
just,
I mean,
that's awesome.
it's just a good platform for people to come on and get more, um, to be seen. And that's why I figured most people wouldn't have a problem with it. But we ran into a couple that no showed us, or it'd be like 8:30, and we're like, oh man. All right,
Hello.
well, this is just a trio tonight. We're gonna,
Right,
you know.
right, right.
But I'm glad
No,
you took the time.
it's like I said, after 35 years of being around this and stuff, it's still amazing to me that you still get the pop that you do, and people still want you to be involved, and it's just for you
Yeah.
guys to even ask me to be on this. Feel very privileged.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
now the privilege is ours.
Right, definitely.
I appreciate that.
All right, so I'll pencil you in. So for sometime in February, I'll come up with you and get the dates going. But I'm
Perfect.
going to call it. So from everyone at the Squared Ring Podcast. Oh, you know what? I want to chime in real quick. We got this lovely compliment from one of our fans who wrote us on our Instagram page, who just wrote a great couple of paragraphs about how they love the format. We didn't do it with you because you've been around forever, but we normally do like a little contest, like a little trivia where we'll throw in like a picture of someone like Kevin Nash, and then
Mm-hmm.
when he was the Wizard of
Grand
Oz,
Wizard.
Oz or
like
something. Yeah.
yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
tell me who that is, and then a
Gotcha.
true or false, and we've been getting a lot of feedback with them loving the platform and how we're talking individually to the wrestlers
Mm-hmm.
and actually diving a little deeper into the wrestlers, so they have a background of them.
Well, next time we'll do the name that gimmick and true or false with you, Danny. But I think this time we just
Yeah.
wanted to
No,
hear the stories and talk to you.
Yeah.
that's perfect. I appreciate it. No, that's great. That's
But
great.
so I just want to give that person props. Nathan, you know the guy's name. What was his name?
A sham.
All right. So thank you for writing that comment. That was awesome of you. And for everyone else who's watching this, please like, comment, share, subscribe, tell your buddies. And if you like anything or if you don't like something, let us know. Either way, we're
Yep.
pretty flexible. And if there's something we agree on that we don't all like, we'll change it up. But at least give us that chance. Like, share, and comment for me. But from everyone at the Squared Ring Podcast, thank you, Danny, for coming on.
Hey,
But
thank you guys.
till next time, guys. You guys have a good night.
All right.
See you,
You guys
everybody.
too. Thank you.
See you guys.